Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the informational meeting of Tuesday, June 8, 2021. First thing I'd like to do is call this to order. And I will, for the record, I will note that Councilor Christine Erickson is on the phone, and 2 other councilors are on their way. So the first order of business, committee reports, Siouxland Heritage Museum Board, Councilmember Starr.
Yes, I was unable to attend that meeting, so I will get minutes and information back to the council on the meeting.
Right, thank you. Now we go on to councilor remarks. Any councilors have remarks that they'd like to bring up? Hearing none, we're going to jump into our first presentation. Let me remind everybody that at the end of these presentations, we will have public comment. So our portion of the meeting will end precisely at 5:30, and then we'll move to public input. So the first presentation is Southeast Technical College, an update. Bob Griggs, please.
Good afternoon, council members. Councilor Erickson, all of you, I want to thank you for the opportunity to visit with you, provide you with an update on some of our Southeast Tech initiatives that have been funded by the city. Obviously, COVID was a huge impact on our campus last year. I think overall we actually did very, very well in terms of minimizing any outbreaks on campus, just minimal exposures. As far as enrollment, we did very well. We were up 1% overall last fall in our degree-seeking students, which was very good considering nationally, as a result of COVID, 2-year institutions, according to the National Student Clearinghouse, were down 10.5% on average, nationally. So, being up 1% last fall, I think was quite successful. This spring semester, we were down just slightly in our head count compared to last spring. So, overall, I think our programs and our students did very, very well, weathering the pandemic here this past year. To give you a little idea about as far as who our students are, 49% of our students are part-time this fall, which besides COVID is probably the biggest news. That's a huge jump in terms of, I started at Southeast Tech 5 years ago, and at that time about 34% of our students were part-time. So what we've seen is a slow increase in the number of part-time students, which I think is reflective of Sioux Falls. A lot of non-traditional working adults, individuals coming to campus that are juggling jobs, families, and so forth. We also have a growing minority population. You can see over the years some of the growth. This past fall, we went up to approximately 17% of our students are part-time students. Around 40% are Pell eligible, meaning they are low-income students. That number did drop this past fall in the pandemic, and that's a number that was replicated nationally to about 20% of our students receiving Pell. What it means is essentially a lot of the low-income students, I think what we're seeing in terms of numbers also happened at the national level with students having to work. And so juggling, again, that job opportunity and going to school. And so even though our numbers didn't fall, we saw less Pell eligible students this past fall. And 14% of our students, 13 to 14% of our students come from out of the state, which I think is a significant number. That was 304 students came from outside the state of South Dakota, primarily from Minnesota and Iowa. Some very good news over this past year is our fall-to-fall retention rate increased to 76%, which is the highest level we've ever had for a fall-to-fall retention rate. Again, that number has steadily improved over the last several years, and due to the great work of our faculty and their academic programs and our student support services as well. supporting those students. That's a very hard number to obtain, especially when you have 49% of those students as part-time students. So we're working hard to not only get those students out to campus, but make sure they're successful once they come out. Also this past year, we did our last graduate survey, and we ended up with a 99% placement rate for our students, and 88% of those students are staying in South Dakota, which is a really critical number. So if you look at 90% of those 304 students that came to us from out of state are staying in the state of South Dakota in our region in Sioux Falls, that's an impressive number, and we're a talent importer. Another number just to mention, to bring your attention to, is we've had 5 successful years, in consecutive years of expanding our dual, or I should say our Build Dakota scholarship support. And so our Build Dakota Fund, as you're aware, was in 2015, Denny Sanford and the state of South Dakota matched funding, and each contributed $25 million, and all 4 technical institutes have provided Build Dakota funds. What we've been able to do the past several years is also have a Sponsor the Scholar program where that money is matched by industry. So industry, in fact, is paying half of our students' tuition for their programs, and we're able to stretch those Build Dakota dollars. So this past year, those photographs are photos of this past Friday on campus. We had 111 Build Dakota full ride scholarships that were awarded to our students. 92 of those were industry sponsored by business and industry in the Sioux Falls region. So they came out with their family and their friends. We had Congressman Dusty Johnson out to serve as our keynote. So it was a really exciting time to award nearly $2 million in terms of tuition scholarships. Some other key points just to mention. In 2019, for the first time in our history, we were added to the Aspen list in terms of high achieving colleges. So what that means is based on our placement rate, on our retention rate, and the success of our students, we are in the top 10% of all 2-year colleges in the country. We were awarded that designation again in 2021. Aspen does this review every 2 years. So 2019 being the first time in our history at Southeast to receive that designation and recognition, and then again receiving in 2021. Probably the most important information on this slide, besides the other awards that are noted, is that the Brookings Institute did a study last summer and into the fall, and they looked at 596 2-year colleges and looked at economic development, economic mobility for students attending that college, and Southeast Tech ranked 8th in the country out of 596 2-year colleges. So we think that clearly demonstrates, the quality of the investment, that it's a solid investment in those students, or in our students, and in their futures. To get more specifically in terms of how we're using some of the dollars the city has funded Southeast Tech, I wanted to go over just with you very quickly some of the new programs. Over the past 2 years, we've added actually 10 new programs to respond to business and industry need. Our mission and focus is to meet the workforce needs of the region, and I think we're working very, very hard to do that. As an example, we expanded our construction trades program to include 3 new certificate programs. Those programs are also dual credit at area high schools, at CTE Academy, at Harrisburg, also at McCrossin Boys Ranch. We're offering a program out there for their students to earn some dual credit high school and college credit. So that's been very, very successful, and some of the city funding is helping us with our expansion in terms of work for our residential construction students with the Habitat for Humanity. We're signing an MOU with them, so this fall our students will be able to work on some of their projects. Another area where the city has contributed funding is the expansion into our Class B driver's license training program. That's one of the hottest jobs in South Dakota, is Class A, Class B driving and CDL licenses, and we've been fortunate to again use some of the city funding to help purchase a automatic semi that's allowed us to increase the number of CDL driver applicants. Telecommunications is another area. The city's pushing 5G expansion. We actually have one of only 2 programs in the country right now in teleconstruction. And this is a program that we partnered with Vicor. They're a very successful teleconstruction company in Sioux Falls. They built a $2 million lab just a mile and a half away from our campus. Instead of trying to replicate on our campus, we've signed a facility use agreement and are working with them on use of their facilities. Dental assisting is another program where the city council and some of that funding has helped us in the past. We launched our dental assisting program this past fall, and it filled immediately with 24 students, and it's full again for next fall. The same with veterinary technician. That program launched for the first time this past fall. We started with 24 students, finished the fall semester, and 22 continued on into the spring, and that program's full again. That's another example of where Southeast Tech is reaching out and partnering with the community. We have a facilities use agreement with McCrossin Boys Ranch. We do not have large animal facilities on our campus, so we've done a great job remodeling in terms of some of our existing facilities to accommodate the new program, but we partner with McCrossin Boys Ranch and use of their facilities in large animals in terms to meet that American Medical Association requirement in order for that program to be approved. And another new program, Paramedic Science, partnering again with Sanford, and Respiratory Therapy with Avera. So as you can see, we've been very busy over the last 2 years with those programs. A couple that you have been very, very strong supporters of, and the last time I was here, I had the opportunity to update you on our Avera Academy and Classrooms to Careers program. And I'm very proud and pleased to share with you some of those numbers. If you remember, those are for first-generation low-income and minority students, students that typically are not going on to post-secondary, whether that's at a 2-year or a 4-year level. And so we completed this year, even though it was a very difficult COVID year, we completed the second year of our pilot programs with Avera and Sanford. And Classrooms to Careers is partially funded by the city with cooperation with Sanford Health, the First Premier Bank, and the Sioux Falls School District. And so some of those numbers, I think, are very impressive. These students now that have continued on, this is the year 1, 39% went on to Southeast Tech and continued their education. 30% went on to other institutions, meaning 4-year institutions, Augustana, USD, SDSU, and so forth. And then they have some of the student comments there and some of the feedback they received from the students. Our second year had similar results in terms of where did these students end up going after their time at Southeast Tech, and you can see there, again, about 30% of them continued on at Southeast Tech. 44% continued with our 4-year university partners, which it's really exciting to see that. And I think that is strong evidence that this program is opening doors and opportunities for those students. And then as far as some of the funding priorities for Southeast Tech, again, I mentioned dental assisting. That's a photograph of the new dental assisting lab that was finished and again just launched this past fall. We're very excited also the photo of the trailer. That trailer was donated by Henry Carlson. Our students and our faculty worked to bring it up to where you see the photos are in terms of some of the repairs there. Some of the funding that we received from the city again was used to help modify that trailer. That trailer is actually going to be our mobile construction lab and will allow us then to work with Habitat for Humanity, and we also want to work with the city. I think the last time I was here, we talked about helping the city renovate low-income housing as our lab areas, and I think that's a great project. COVID really threw a wrench into that this past year, but we want to get back on track with that. And with our mobile trailer here that you can see, we are hoping then to use, again, our residential construction students and bring them out to different sites throughout the city to help renovate those projects. And then our veterinary tech ribbon cutting was just 2 weeks ago. That's the top photo there is a shot of all of the chamber representatives that were there. We had a great community turnout for that, and we're quite proud of the facilities that were developed. And there's also a photo of the semi that we purchased to help expand our CDL. I also thought it was interesting that 3 of the top careers in South Dakota that you see there, CDL, RN, and carpenter construction, are all programs where we've invested, again, some of those city dollars to help us move forward. And there is a shot of our lab. I think in the bottom right-hand corner you can see some of our new lab facilities there. So we're very excited about those programs. What's nice to see, again, they are all full for this coming fall already. So vet tech, dental assisting, construction, and CDL continues to experience high demand for those services. And last slide is talking about going forward and what do we want to do, and hopefully continue to partner with you all. A very, very important initiative that I've heard from the mayor and from all of you in terms of on the city council has been, again, what is Southeast Tech doing to ensure the success of students, especially low-income, first-generation minority students. We started the Avera Academy. That's had great success. We've started Classroom to Careers. We're starting to see more of those students showing up on our campus. So how are we ensuring that those students are successful? And so phase 2 is our plan to do that. On this slide, you can see Southeast Tech first. Phase 1 was our Classroom to Careers initiative, and then expanding into, we're expanding our on-campus tutoring opportunities, which is critical for students, expanding our ELL support services. We've been talking with Lutheran Social Services again in terms of partnering and collaborating there. And I'm also very excited to let you know that we've hired, for the first time in our history, a Director of Diversity and Workforce Opportunity, and that person will be very key in terms of helping us ensure that these students, we have more first-generation low-income and minority students coming to campus as an option, and then helping to ensure their success once they are on campus. The other bullets there that are listed, the Sioux Falls Area Humane Society with our vet tech program now getting launched and moving forward. We are very excited about the opportunity to work with the Sioux Falls Humane Society and our students being volunteers there. We've already started to work with Sioux Falls Community Health. We worked with them this past fall on a flu shot clinic. And we're able to hold that out at Southeast Tech, and we want to expand, again, medical assisting programs, volunteering in that program, and our RN and LPN students. And then with the dental assisting program also starting now, I think that opens doors in terms of partnership with community health and the dental clinic as well. So lots of good opportunities to partner, I think, with the city and move forward. The last recognition I think is one that deserves some special attention. And Southeast Tech just a few weeks ago was notified that we were selected as a military-friendly school, which we have been for a number of years. They rank schools, and over 800 schools are evaluated, and I think it's around 400 or so received this military-friendly recognition. And there's different levels of it: bronze, silver, and gold. And for the first time in our history, we were recognized as being gold top 10 in the country. So that means we were on one of the top 10 gold military-friendly recognized schools in the country, and that has a lot to do, again, with the hard work of our faculty to work with our military service members and family members. We did create a new veteran center on campus, and we're going to be expanding that this fall. We want to make certain that we're doing all we can to serve those that served our country, and so we're quite proud of that also. So with that, that concludes my summary report of some of the initiatives this past year, and again want to thank you for the opportunity to provide that update and open it up for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Councilors, questions? Councilor Selberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. And what a just endless run of impressive statistics. Did you say you were 8th in the country out of 500 for 2-year educational?
That was the Brookings Institute ranking. Yeah, they ranked us as 8th out of 596 institutions for economic mobility of our students. So thought that's to me, again, that's been our job, is to work with students, take them, coming in and hopefully provide them with the education that gives them the opportunity to go out and not only find a job, but excel at that career. And I think that's a great indication that our faculty are doing a wonderful job in that regard.
Yeah, it's fantastic. There's so many good stats here. I couldn't keep them all straight. Top 10 military-friendly schools in the country. Particularly, what sticks out too, because it's a never-ending subject, obviously, here is workforce. 88% of graduates are staying in South Dakota.
That's our last graduate survey that was completed just recently. We just had a State Board of Technical Education meeting in Rapid City, and they shared the statewide numbers for all 4 technical institutes. We had a 99% placement rate this past year, with 88% of those students staying in South Dakota to continue with their occupation.
Are there particular programs and efforts you guys have been doing recently to add to that number?
I think what we see is, again, healthcare has always been very strong at Southeast Tech, the LPN and RN programs, and a lot of opportunity there. Sonography, surge techs, lots of opportunities for our students to get good paying jobs here in the region, and obviously we're seeing that. And not only in Sioux Falls, but I think our students also go across the state. So.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, great job and great presentation. I know I sure enjoyed the tour that you guys gave us last, I don't remember how long ago it's been. Probably, it's been a few months. Time goes so fast, but sure is impressive how things are moving along out there. Nice work. Thanks.
Thank you.
Counselor Brecky.
Question about the mobile construction laboratory, kind of tying in with the neighborhood revitalization, trying to figure out how to understand how it all fits together.
Sure.
On the mobile construction laboratory, I checked the box by renovate city-owned housing as part of construction management program. There was talk, I believe, last year about a program where you were going to train, construction skills for rehabbing older facilities, because it seems like it's getting more and more difficult for people who live in the lower income housing to get the maintenance work done, because people would rather do the new construction, and that's what they're doing. And we're having a problem in the city keeping our stock of affordable housing updated as a result. And so I know that you were working on that. Can you tell me, is either one of these programs tag into that, or how is that coming along?
It really does all fit together. The construction lab would include the materials and tools that the students would need to take with them to the job site. So that was something that we didn't have before, and again, Henry Carlson was willing to step in, and we did quite a bit of work on the trailer there. But we need these locations, and I think there have been meetings with the city in terms of trying to identify some of those locations. Right now, we've just signed an MOU with Habitat for Humanity. We've been trading that back and forth. Unfortunately, since the last time I was here, COVID intervened, and frankly, that put a stop to all of our conversations and discussions. So, to be frank, we are starting back up again where we were about a year and a half ago in terms of that opportunity. But it's our residential construction. If you remember, one of the first slides I had was there are 3 different certificates that Southeast Tech created based on workforce need. A general construction, a residential construction, and a commercial construction. So we do not have residential construction labs, so what we're going to do is partner again, and we'll work with Habitat for Humanity, but also we'd like to work with the city on some of these properties. These are students though, and that's the difficulty, is that they are students completing a program, so they're not out there 8 to 5, so it's very difficult to assign them a particular project or say this is what they agree to renovate. It's part of a learning experience for our students. So we need to be careful about what type of projects we take on and so forth. But I think those conversations will be starting up again.
Will some of could some of the projects be, because this is city-owned housing, it says on there, privately owned? Like, I'm thinking in particular, there's a couple of trailer courts in town that are really struggling, and those people need those homes to keep a roof over their head. They're on the borderline, between that and homelessness. And, I know a person, an individual in one of those trailers that got money from our housing authority She had $3,000 in an account that she could use for rehab and a list of 20 names of people to do it, and could not find anyone on that list to actually do the work, and had to sit there while it just continues to tumble down around her. So I'm wondering, I know she's not alone. I know in that particular trailer park, she's not alone. You know, that was something when Shelley Unruh was here, I talked to her about, you know, from the city's perspective, you know, is there some way, I mean, that was, you know, housing money.
Right.
It couldn't be spent, but a tremendous need. And if those can be fixed up enough to let those people finish out their years, you don't want to put too much money. On the other hand, I mean, you don't want to add to your homeless problem. So I'm very interested in seeing if there's a way that those skills could be taught in such a way that people could be trained by fixing some of those older homes, those older trailer homes. If students could do some of that work, and there could be, you know, some way to rehab those places to make them more suitable for living.
I think we would absolutely be willing to have the conversation in terms of prioritizing where and what projects are brought forward first. Number one, you have to have the ability to do that. And I am here and very proud to say we now have that ability in terms of with the trailer, with the curriculum, which we didn't have a year and a half ago, with the faculty on staff that we have now that we didn't have a year and a half ago, and so forth. So the opportunity to, I think, create those win-win situations where the homeowners need the help, our students learn a valuable skill, and the city's helping develop more low-income housing. All very, very doable type projects, and I think we just need to, again, pick up where COVID sort of stopped that conversation and move forward. But again, without your support, none of this would have been possible. Some of those funds were used to help with that trailer and some of the tools that are going to be taken out to the site and so forth. So the city's been a big player in it, and I'm here to say, probably more than anything, thank you for giving us the opportunity to work with you, and we hope you see it again as a good investment of these dollars in our community. Thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, I'll just add that I think we all realize that a highly skilled and trained workforce is essential for a growing city, and I appreciate the role that you've played and the leadership that you've done in that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to our next presentation, YMCA Downtown Community Youth Center. Mike Murphy.
Well, thank you, councilors. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you this afternoon. I'm Mike Murphy. I'm the CEO and camp director for the Sioux Falls YMCA. Been with the YMCA for about 25 years now in variety of capacities, but most recently as the CEO. So again, thank you. Here to talk a little bit about our Downtown Community Youth Center and how the city of Sioux Falls might be able to assist us with our next steps. So how we arrived here was back in 2016. The Sioux Falls YMCA was evaluating what the future of our organization would look like and how we could best serve the community of Sioux Falls. As part of that evaluation, we determined that affordable housing, food security, and youth programs were really the future of the YMCA. And I'm proud to say that we've been able to address affordable housing through some partnerships. We're working on food security, which will be part of this Downtown Community Youth Center, and then quality youth programs, which was really a return to what the mission of the YMCA has always been in Sioux Falls, which is serving our youth. So as part of that, and really what kind of spurred this was the Bowdoin Youth Center, which was previously located downtown, relocated to the south end of town. And as part of that, we identified a need that the youth of particularly the downtown area needed a safe place to go on a daily basis. And so we began operating a Downtown Community Youth Center at that point, and began serving typically between 60 to 90 youth a day. It's a free drop-in center. The kids are free to come in every day that they want to. We're open year-round, and they have a safe place to go every evening and every day during the summer, where we provide quality programming for them, along with food and really that security aspect. So about 2 years ago, we also began to identify what are some ways that we could enhance that programming downtown. And the two things we identified was, one, to kind of start to look outside of our organization, and two, how we could secure the future of the facility as well. And so we began to have conversations with the Boys and Girls Club of the Sioux Empire Rebecca Wimmer, who's their CEO, and myself began to have some, what I consider some groundbreaking conversations around let's take the logos out of this, let's take the borders down, and let's start focusing on kids, and identified that both of our organizations have fantastic things that we can offer the youth of Sioux Falls, and let's look at ways of how we share costs, share expenses, and let's put them under the same roof. And so over the course of the last 2 years, we've been working collaboratively to offer, again, an enhanced youth center downtown, and have really been able to offer a variety of programs that you see listed here that are able to serve these kids in a variety of fashions. It's not just a place to come and sit and hang out. They're learning, they're getting job skills, we're turning them into hopefully successful young adults for the community. So in addition to that, during the school year, the YMCA provides after-school programming at all of the public middle schools. And so particular McGovern and Whittier, we provide transportation from the youth after they finish with the after-school program, and we're able to get those youth downtown to our community youth center downtown as well to provide that extended care, because frankly, a lot of these kids are going home to an empty household after school. And so by bringing them downtown, we're able to enhance that care, we're able to provide them dinner downtown, we're able to provide them enhanced programming, and in many instances, we then give them a ride home through that collaborative effort with Boys and Girls Club. So it really, in my mind, this is kind of a groundbreaking effort. Most recently, we've welcomed Great Life into this partnership as well, and they provide some programming for the youth throughout the year. And again, it's a collaborative effort between all the organizations. It's not for anyone in particular, to capitalize on. It's really about serving the youth of downtown Sioux Falls. So along with that, obviously we were focused on securing the future of the facility as well. And so we engaged in an effort to raise $4.35 million. I'm very proud to say through a lot of hard work and effort, to date we've received pledges of $3.78 million. And as you can see by some of the names and the organizations listed here, this has a lot of community backing. There's a lot of great individuals on this list, a lot of great organizations that see the value in the mission and the value of this downtown community youth center and what it can do for the community of Sioux Falls along with our youth. So in order to help address the remaining fundraising total, we would like to respectfully request an amount of $500,000 from the city of Sioux Falls. And this would really help address that remaining amount and get us very close to that final goal. If you look at where the community youth centers are located in the city of Sioux Falls, we do have a void in that downtown area in regards to the Sioux Falls Community Youth Center. And for a lot of these children, there is no ride for mom or dad. There is no other option to get to these types of locations. Downtown is where they live, it's where they go, and they don't have any other options to go. And so, if the city was to look at opening a community youth center building, just the land purchase, the development, and the operating costs would be a significant investment. And here we have a top-notch facility, we have multiple top-notch organizations that focus on youth, and we're there, and we would like to be there for the future to serve our youth. So this one-time contribution would help ensure that we have a safe place for these kids to go. And again, we're not just serving downtown, but really kids from throughout the community by bringing them in every day. So. And why is this important? I'm fortunate to serve the community of Sioux Falls in a couple different capacities. And I serve the downtown area primarily, Cleveland Corridor, Cliff Avenue, a lot of those areas. And what really has made this personal for me is, unfortunately, I've gotten to know a lot of individuals for all the wrong reasons. And along with that, I'm getting to know their kids for all the wrong reasons. And I'm praying that I don't meet that third generation someday. And so the city has done a tremendous amount of things to try to address those issues. What we can do is we can do the preventative work to make sure that these kids have a bright future and a safe place to go every day after school, every day during the summer, and they don't become that next issue for the city of Sioux Falls to try to address in that downtown area. Again, this is personal. We get to know these kids downtown. Our hope is to go on to see them grow up to be, contributing citizens for the city of Sioux Falls, and hopefully not become a burden on our services for the city as well. The YMCA's got a long history. We've been in the community for over 100 years. We were one of the founding members of the Chamber of Commerce, and it is my goal to make sure that we're here for the next 100 years, and this contribution would go a long ways towards ensuring that we will always be a anchor of the downtown area for the youth. It's great to hear a lot of our members and our board members talk about going from Washington High and going right over to the Y every night, and playing high Y ball and going down to the game room and working at the YMCA. And to me, this is going to help ensure that we continue that mission for these next generations. So Thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and I believe questions later.
Questions, comments? Counselors?
Do you want to address them now, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Well, one question that I have, Mr. Murphy, is one of the things I always remember about the YMCA is you don't turn any kids away. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter if they have $0 or $100 million, they can come and hang out.
We always find a way. Absolutely.
So when you're doing these programs and keeping kids safe from, you know, that 3 to 6 p.m. time frame, you have a group of volunteers and staff that come and help mentor these young kids and help them have a positive experience, even in the downtown area?
Absolutely. So between the YMCA staff and the Boys and Girls Club staff and now Great Life staff as well, we always have multiple staff on site every evening, every day. In addition, we've begun engaging a lot of volunteer organizations that are coming in and providing that additional enhancements to the program. Obviously, it's been a little bit tougher with COVID, but we're excited to see a lot of organizations coming into the building now and providing that program. We've got some exciting enhancements coming up around some sports opportunities for the kids. We're hopeful to include a kitchen in the very near future that will help provide even further meal opportunities for these children as well. So,
Well, here's my comment, Mr. Chair, if I may, and I'll wrap up real quick. You know, this is 60 to 90 kids every day that are being served by this private, public, private donor, private organization group. What an outstanding thing for our community. They've already raised $3.78 million. Their goal is to get to 4.35. And these guys, this organization is working with the youth in our community, trying to give them a hand up where they may not even be able to get a hand out when they get home because there's no one there for them. So what do they turn to? They turn to things that may not be the best interest of them. But if we help support this as a priority of the city council and of the administration, this is exactly what we're looking for. This is exactly what we're trying to do, is be preventative rather than to deal with these problems, as Mr. Murphy said, later on in life. What a way to give these kids an opportunity to be successful rather than to slip through the cracks and end up in one of our other entities. I just can't tell you how big of a deal this private-public partnership is going to be. They've already done a lot of the heavy lifting themselves, and if we can help them get over, you know, this last piece, they're going to be in our community, right there, right in downtown Sioux Falls. I think it's really important as we make this a priority. Thank you.
thank you very much, sir.
Other comments or questions?
Mr. Chair.
Counselor Erickson.
Thank you. You may lose me. I'm traveling, so I apologize if I cut out. I'll be brief. Thank you for the presentation, the previous one as well as this one. The one thing that really struck a chord with me is when we talk prevention. I know there's a pretty remarkable statistic out there, and I don't want to misquote it, but for every dollar spent on prevention is a dollar saved down the road on maybe decisions made, and really breaking that cycle as we move forward in the community. We as a city have not made youth prevention a priority. We do stuff and we fund some things here and there, but this really is putting our money where our mouth is and really truly trying to move the needle on prevention. It also really checks the box of mentorship. We know how important mentorship is in the community, and really being a positive role model to some of these people that maybe don't have a lot of positivity in their lives. And so, you know, it didn't even click in my mind about we don't have a youth that's downtown. I mean, I didn't even think of that. And so that is a huge component too, where some of our most vulnerable youth are. And so for me, I think this is an exciting project. It wasn't necessarily on my radar until it was brought forward a few weeks ago. And so for whoever did that, thank you for bringing that forward. And I'm excited about a project like this and think we can really make a difference for generations to come for our youth. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you. Counselor Selberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How long has the fundraising effort been going on for this again?
Just over a year. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So then this would be, the 500,000 would put you over the mark, right?
Yep.
Super. Well, it's a definite need. I mean, it's another one of those where you look at it and go, yeah, no brainer. I remember reading a survey too where they they surveyed teens that were getting in trouble and say, what's the number one deal to do? Why are you doing this? And they say, well, they came back with, because they didn't have anything better to do and there was nothing else to do. I mean, it's just, it's a perfect fit for that. So, yeah, I mean, I can't imagine we're not going to fully support this. And I certainly appreciate the attention the program's brought to it and the presentation today. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Other comments? Councilor Becky?
I think it's always fun to see institutions, which is what you are, reinvent themselves. And you think over the years, the YMCA and the YWCA have reinvented themselves several times to meet the needs of the community, but they're still here, still meeting the needs of the community. And then to see two organizations that are highly respected come together, it's just like an exclamation mark. It's like, okay, this is serious. We can really do something. And I look at the two organizations and say, what a perfect marriage.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got the big facility, the space. They've got, you know, the teaching skills, the contacts, and be able to bring those two together it's very exciting. And again, I think whoever brought it forward, I was unaware that the two were working to work together like this. And so I think it's a wonderful reinvention, and it's very promising. So look forward to supporting it.
Thank you. I just have a few quick comments. I will say, as years ago, when there used to be a whole bunch of men working out there, I'd work out at the Y, go to work that day, and then come back. It was an interesting time seeing the old men that I would qualify for now work out at the Y. So it's glad to see that now it's really being concentrated on what I think the purpose should be, is the youth. The only thing that I would caution you, I mean, Mike, don't burn yourself out. You know, make sure you have plenty of help for these projects as you go forward. And I'm tremendously excited that the council's embraced the fact that we can push you to the edge, right where you need to be. And I think this is going to get unanimous support, at least from what I've heard for the council, when the time comes for us to do that. So you approach us at the right time with the budget coming. So I appreciate your presentation.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, let's go to our next presentation. Becky Rasmussen, Call to Freedom.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to share about our new Marissa housing project. Anti-human trafficking is very new. In 2002, it was put into federal mandate. So for a lot of communities, human trafficking is a new topic. But for us at Call to Freedom, we're a fairly new organization, but we've grown exponentially. And so with that being said, 3% of victims of human trafficking are ever identified. Human trafficking is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to exploit somebody for either sex or labor. One of the stats is life expectancy of a human trafficking victim is 7 years because of the mental, spiritual, and physical abuse that they endure. Since the conception of Call to Freedom, and I founded in January of 2016, I never expected the need to be as great as we're seeing today. This year alone, we're on pace to double the numbers of our previous year. We are at 23 staff that we started, and that seems small probably to a lot of organizations. For the new organization, our full-time staff is training everybody across the state to make this a reality. And so survivors of human trafficking do not come out unless they feel safe. And so one of the key points of that safety is to provide housing and supportive housing for those that are victimized by trafficking. One of the things as well is that victims of trafficking do not like to retell their story. As you see, Call to Freedom has a continuum care approach, and we're one of the few organizations within the state that are actually doing anti-human trafficking and supportive work. Education within communities. We're currently working with Child Protection Services to better identify victims of youth. We're currently adult service providers. We have a bilingual case manager that's going into the foreign national community and reaching out. And also emergency assessment. We have an addiction counselor on staff and mental health. Housing is a huge need for those that we serve because of the poverty level. So we also have a housing navigator, 2 employee specialists that actually go on the job site with our survivors and actually teach them on the job skills. One of the things with survivors is that they don't have the mental, a lot of PTSD, a lot of anxiety. For them to go thrust back into the work environment or thrust into housing is not a reality, and it sets them up for failure. And so we come alongside them in all of these capacities to really support them, not only in housing, but also in life and getting back on their feet. And of course, Marissa's Housing Project, we have several coordinators in that area. What does Call to Freedom do? I wanted to spend a little time on this because we're a fairly new organization. We provide safety from individuals, traffickers, and rings, and I'm here to tell you, we don't hear a lot about trafficking, but it is happening within our communities. Support and services for recovery and healing, also providing them with the tools to be able to get their own life and their own skills and independence. When an individual comes out of trafficking, everything in their life has been stripped from them. Their identity, and that's not just the personal identity, because a lot of times they steal their identity and use that for fraud, but also their self-identity. And to be able to provide them with the hope and the ability to restore their life so that they can talk with other victims, encourage others, is really part of breaking that cycle of trafficking. We've been doing housing since October of 2016, and we started with just efficiency apartments, and we're currently offering that housing. It has grown so much because this year alone, 68% of our current clients are from Minnehaha County. 1% of those are from Lincoln, and the other percentage are from Hughes and the other part of the state. So what we're seeing, as survivors feel safe, they're referring other survivors. Safety isn't just getting them out of the situation. Safety really is, they will threaten their children. They'll take machetes to the family members and threaten them. These threats are very real sometimes, and sometimes it's a perceived coercion tactic that's utilized to them. But it's happening within our communities. One of the things when they come out of trafficking situations is the poverty level. Traffickers will utilize their identity, and they will steal their identity, so lots of debt is put in the victims' names. And so right now, currently within our clientele, 95% of the current Call to Freedom clients are 28,000, just below 29,000, which is poverty level. 84% are extremely. With that being said, a lot of them come with debt and a lot of different barriers. So the lack of safe housing, they can't afford housing. Physical and disabilities, they cannot hold a full-time job typically when they come out of a trafficking situation because of some of the things that they have endured in their victimization. But also the mental disability, the mental distress that they endure is very difficult to say, go back into a work environment, now handle your debt, now go back to a normal life. It's not a reality for a victim of trauma, especially complex trauma. When they come out, it's so overwhelming just to say, I have to get back into life and budget my checkbook. I have to go and make my own appointments for medical. And in that, those financial issues also are a barrier for them even coming out. Their trafficker will say to them, you can't get out because I control all of your finances. I control your children. I also control your identity, and nobody's going to believe you. And until they believe that there's a service provider that can come alongside them to be able to do and help them live life again, typically they will not come out of those situations. So within Marissa's Housing Project today, we want to visit and ask for your support of a project that we just started in the last 2 months in fundraising. And this project is expand our current Marissa's Housing Project to be 12 units. We're not asking for a large building, but we are asking for a building that will allow us to keep families together. One of the things with survivors that we have noticed is that if they won't do it for themselves. They'll want to be reunited with their children. But as you see, some of the barriers that we talked about, from financial to emotional, is not really a reality for them to be able to do that. Also, because they've been out of the workforce, because they've been out of a living condition, sometimes their children are caught in the systems. They think that they're not good parents, but really they've been in trafficking situations and it's not been fully disclosed. So what we have seen currently within the housing project that we started in October 2016 is we've had 33 clients. Our average stay is 11 months, and 32 of those are employed or are seeking employment. 2 are currently in school, and 1 is not employed because of disability. But what we help them do is to apply for that so that they can transition on their own and be able to have sustainability within their certain situations. So we are breaking ground in the summer of 2021, which is this summer, and our campaign goal is $1.84 million. To date, we've raised $484,000, and we've contracted Maximizing Excellence to help us with our additional fundraising. Our goal is a 13-month campaign. Our sustainability is this. We are currently funded by 3 major federal grants, and we're also receive funding from VOCA dollars, which is on a state level, which will take care of all the operational costs. The reason why we're standing in front of you today, or I'm standing in front of you today, is because safety is a huge issue. Trafficking victims, if they don't believe they're safe, they will not stick around. Survival mode for a trafficking victim is very real. They will run. They've learned to survive. So for us, having the location not be disclosed for their safety for a variety of different reasons, but also donors will not have naming rights of this project, which limits us in regards to being able to raise significant naming rights of an individual for this fundraising project. And as I stated before, the ongoing operational costs will be covered by VOCA dollars, which is a state dollars as well. What will this new project provide? March of last year, we do a prayer before we start the week, and I asked the staff, what are the needs of the women? And they told me that they want to be with their families. Currently, our housing project only has efficiency apartments. We've had survivors who have actually lived in those efficiency apartments with 2 children because they're scared to leave. For them, support comes in different ways than our family, because a lot of times their family is a reason for their victimization. This will allow us to eliminate the impossible decision of choosing to be reunified with one's child versus leaving the program. It also adds to the holistic aim of programming with a focus on rebuilding and restoring family life. Provide survivors a safe and supportive space to reclaim their role as a parent and learn how to model healthy behavior. Our goal is to stabilize and to have successful transition out of our projects or out of our services. One of the things is our services don't end. We stay with them as long as they need us. Support is vital to those that we serve, and they haven't had that. They haven't had a good example of who can support them or a good model in their life typically, and we want to be that and come alongside them to provide those services. So I want to thank you so much for your questions. Thank you for your consideration. I know that's a lot of information. I'm really passionate about this, but I just want to thank you for the opportunity to present.
Thank you. Questions, counselors? Counselor Becky?
I've got a series of questions because I think it's really important that you're at a public forum and this is live and being recorded. People need to know that we have a trafficking problem in this county, in this city, in this state.
Yes.
And they need to understand it. So I've got some questions that I want to ask you because I want you to think of this as an opportunity to tell the world, of course, keeping the confidentiality, you know, what is really going on and why it's so important that we help these children. And so I'm start with, generically speaking, who are the traffickers and where do they come from?
Yeah. So trafficking comes in many different forms. There's not one demographic. Family members, familial trafficking is a very common form of trafficking. We're working with Child Protection Services right now to equip them to better identify and respond to the needs of family members trafficking their own children. There's a case right now that's being prosecuted right here in the city on a federal level that's a familial case. Also gang-related. We've seen the increase of some criminal activity in all of our communities, and that comes with growth. Gang-related trafficking really comes onesie, twosie gangs, or it could be those organized gangs that are going what we call transit trafficking, is across major lines. So Milwaukee, Chicago, Minneapolis, North Dakota, we've seen the streamlined process of that, and this is business. And so anybody who can make money off of an individual can be a trafficker. Those are the typical type of a trafficking we've seen. An average victim of trafficking is $100,000 to $150,000 a year. Average trick is $100. One of the things about trafficking is you can sell a person over and over again, whereas distribution or a legal drug activity, you actually have a possession and there's a cost in that. So these organized crimes, organized criminal activity is really looking this as an opportunity, and it's one of the fastest growing illegal activities. And I'm here to tell you, we last week alone had 12 referrals in 4 days. As we get our staff going and we're adding more staff and we're doing more identification and we're doing more preparing to ask the questions and to respond to the needs of trafficking victims, they're coming from everywhere. And we're at a point where we're trying to add staff as quickly as we can. But in that, if we can't sustain that, I don't ever want to turn somebody away. But I have a feeling we may be in that position very soon.
Along the same line, describe to us who the victims are, generically. What are their ages and where are they coming from?
So average age that we serve is 27 to 29. But we know it's happening with youth. One of the things that we're very passionate about and we're working to equip is to better identify that. Trafficking victims don't typically self-identify. The person that they know is the person who's trafficking them, so they trust them. They don't even sometimes understand that they're a trafficking victim because of the coercion technique that is used to pull them into trafficking. Grooming and recruiting. One of the other things that we're seeing is a lot of online recruiting within schools. So social media, Instagram, as well as Facebook. And we're seeing where there are actually individuals put into school systems or into other systems that are called recruiters. And what they do is they begin to build relationships with their peers. And they will take pictures on Instagram, pose with this young girl, and there is a group behind them that are called traffickers. And it's usually 1 to 2 individuals who are a part of a gang, and they're saying, I want her, I want her. And that peer within those systems are actually making that connection with the trafficker. They'll show up here from Kansas City, they'll show up from Chicago, Florida, various different areas. So we're seeing a lot of that younger, but it's not getting identified the way that it should, simply for the fact that a lot of people, this is a new topic, they don't know how it looks. And so we actually have just gotten educated. We have 7 individuals on our task force that are going into the schools and now beginning to do prevention, as we talked about, to really help them identify, but also in families as well.
If we get better at identifying it, then there's probably far more out there than we know of right now.
Absolutely.
What's creating the demand?
I would say the demand is that it's really hard to prove. The demand is money. The demand is the ability to make money. And the demand is also those that are purchasing. And so on that side of purchasing, if you actually look at the escalation of pornography, when COVID was in this last year, there was a 12% in viewership in pornography. And where there's demand in those individuals that are buying this type of activity, there's always going to be this activity. In 2020, they do sting operations in Sturgis, South Dakota. And during those sting operations, they actually put a 13-year-old girl sold by her dad. It wasn't real, but it was a sting operation. And they had 8 individuals answer that ad. All 8 of those, and actually show up and are being prosecuted at this time, all 8 of those were from South Dakota. That's only a week-long sting operation. The year prior to that, in 2019, that sting operation, and this is really one of the few operations that we're doing to really go after this demand side, in that was actually 12 arrests, and 9 of those were from South Dakota. So as we do these sting operations, we begin to identify the demand of those purchasing these individuals. Online as a huge part of that, online recruitment. And so it's usually typically on those social medias or some of those other venues like Craigslist.
And then I would just give you an opportunity. Is there any other thing, again, that you want to tell us and tell, I mean, from what you've told me right now is this isn't Mayberry anymore. We're not in Mayberry RFD anymore. This is real. It's happening here. It's happening across the state. It's probably happening far more. And you're going to see that as the more we generate facilities to take care of it and education take care of it, it's probably going to be explosive. Is there anything else you want to add? I'm going to give you the floor to just educate us as a council and as any watchers out there of what's going on in our community and in our state.
Thank you for the opportunity for that. One of the things I talk about is trafficking victims don't feel like they will be believed because of this horrific dynamic and some of the things that we're seeing. And by you investing in this project and you giving this a voice, Councilman, it tells them that they are believed. And I remember taking a young girl to the medical clinic, and she was diagnosed with lupus because her trafficking ring was a Mexican cartel. And she was living with us, and she had had multiple surgeries. Well, they didn't allow her to do drugs or have different outlets, so her trauma manifested in physical. And so she was diagnosed with lupus. And as I was taking her multiple times to the hospital, there was a billboard that Junior League did. And she looked up at that billboard and she goes, they really do believe us. And here's what I want to say, is by supporting this project, I get really emotional, sorry. By supporting this project, you say to survivors and victims of human trafficking that you believe in them. And as we say that we believe in them and we give them a voice, more will come out, more will be revealed, and more will be helped. And if they don't feel like they can get the help, they won't come out. And this project will help us supply or be able to support them in that process of getting out. Their trafficker tells them, you won't make it, you won't survive. This is the best condition for you. And I can't tell you how many times I've been in our systems with survivors who have said, I should have stayed in, it's a lot easier. Because the systems sometimes don't come align, a lot of great service providers. But I'm here to tell you that if we don't give this a voice, I feel very confident in saying what we see on drugs, we will see in human trafficking, because it's probably going to make a lot more money on that criminal activity side, and it's a lot harder to prove than drugs are. And so thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Thank you.
Other comments, councilors? Councilor Selberg?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the presentation, and thank you for your passion and emotion. Certainly nothing wrong with that. The issue does need some attention. I think a lot of people need a lot of schooling on it, including me. I need to learn a lot more about it, so I appreciate as we go learning. And congrats on a great start on the fundraising. Only 2 months in, that's a pretty good jump start with what you've raised so far. Can you, and I've maybe seen this before because I know I've seen a little information on this. How many units in the facility we're talking about as far as breaking ground? How many units and how big are they? Because we're talking about families being in them and that type of thing. So just kind of curious.
Absolutely. There's 12 units, 3 3-bedrooms, 3 2-bedrooms, and then the rest are efficiency apartments. So that will allow 1s and 2s families to be together. They're fairly good sized, as far as 2 bathrooms in the 3 units and 1 bathrooms in the other units.
Okay.
And I do have a piece in my material here that I can give you as far as unit size as well.
Okay. And then people who stay here and that all their expenses and that are paid and everything's covered through this program?
So what we
funds
try
and
to do,
efforts?
we do charge rent because we want them to learn to be, they're being able to manage that budget. But it's not a criteria. We don't turn anybody away. What we do is try to teach them how best to manage their budget. And so the rent right now is going to be $300, so it's not huge. Our goal is to be able to allow them to learn how to budget that, but we don't turn anybody away in those services.
Okay, great. Well, you certainly have the right folks around and supporting you and involved to build a quality project. I know that. So anyway, thanks again for the presentation.
Counselor Jensen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here and speaking to us. One question that I had, and then I want to get into a comment. So this is going to allow you to expand the clients that you can serve. You were talking about 33 clients on one of your slides. Tell me a little bit about the capacity, what this will allow you to do. The average stay is 11 months. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So that number right there is just our housing clients. So we also have an outreach portion as well. So our clients are probably 3 times that much. But what this allows us to do is we also will have a community room. Right now, our current project does not have a community room. So we're able to integrate them together and to be able to do group activities, bring individuals in to be able to do budget management, mentorship. If spirituality is a choice of theirs, then that is a part of that as well. But really what this allows us to do is to families. We don't have that opportunity right now. We know that the need is greater than 12 units, but we also want to do it well. We want to make sure that we are having a project staffing-wise, financial-wise. We currently have a waiting list for our current project as well, and that's why we have a need for this. But also, what we have watched is when the individuals transition out of Marissa's housing project to be with their children, our success rate drops because they need that support. Most of them have never learned healthy parenting. They've never learned how to not only just support themselves, but also support an entire family. So capacity-wise, this will allow us to serve, right now we have 7 units, so it'll pretty much double our units, but also with capacities with families.
I love it. Here's my comment on this. So we have another private-public partnership that's going to be a really big success and is going to do something that we don't do currently in the city of Sioux Falls. And what a way to give you guys a shot in the arm. Not only is it private donors coming to your program and helping to donate, but the ongoing expenses will be paid for through federal funds, through the state budget, which is absolutely critical. So this is not only a city priority, it's a state priority, and it's a federal priority. And let me tell you that I think the people around the dais here and the administration believe you. I want to say that first and foremost, we support you, and if we can get behind you and help you to get to your fundraising goal a little faster, maybe we can do a bigger thing. But I think what you're doing is you're creating a movement called Freedom is empowering these victims to unite together. Think about it. She just said that there's going to be a community room here. The way that I grew up in this world is I had great mentors, from past hockey coaches to employers that believed in me and allowed me opportunities. This is going to create a community of victims that can unite together, that have the ability to empower other victims of human trafficking. Because if you create, if South Dakota, if Sioux Falls becomes the area where human trafficking is not allowed, because we're all working together and we have this huge group of mentors that you've already coached up that used to be victims of human trafficking, that are victims of human trafficking, then we can actually nip this in the bud. We talked about institutional conversations in the YMCA. Human trafficking has happened for a very, 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 very long time. And in 2002, you said that's when the federal government kind of came behind. And in 2016, you were founded. This is starting an institution in Sioux Falls that we're going to be able to help. And this will be the start of it. It's going to be 12 units, but you're going to impact much more than 12 people. You're going to impact families. You're going to impact these victims. And as we continue to move forward in Sioux Falls, and we do not allow human trafficking in Sioux Falls or in the state of South Dakota, this is something, this is a blowhorn saying, hey, victims, you're welcome here. Traffickers, you're not welcome here. And we're going to create that culture. And this is one way that we can do it. So I appreciate you being here in front of us today. Wow, you've got an outstanding job, and I could not do it. So thank you so very much for it, and I look forward to getting some of the funds as we continue through this process. There are some different pots of money that we can use. So I look forward to working with you and meeting with each and every one of these counselors privately as well to move this forward. So thank you very much, Becky.
Other questions? Counselor Becky.
No more questions, just a comment I wanted to make. I think it was clear from the questions I asked that I do have an understanding and a passion for this issue. I heard Eric Miller from Keystone speak about it with a small group setting over a year ago, and at the time was wondering, what could the city do to help? It was such an eye-opener for me. I was just in a state of shock. I had no idea exactly what was going on. I mean, these children, these young women, these ladies it's a multifaceted mental health and physical health issues. It's complex like no other. So they can't just go in a 30-day treatment program. And he was trying to do that at the time down at Keystone, and they were being flooded with them. And he actually had an individual sneak in there under the guise of getting alcohol treatment in order to attempt to murder one of these women that he had in this program. I mean, this is organized crime. It's serious. It's dangerous. I mean, it's lucrative. It's just one of the scariest things that I've ever, encountered. And at that moment, I thought, what can the city do? And so when this came forward, I'm going, heck yes, we need to ring the bell. We need to let people know we do believe them, that we're going to try to do what we can to help them. And we need to take our heads out of the sand. We really, really do. So again, I was not the one that brought this forward, but I was so glad when someone did. I did not know what we could do at that time to help Eric down in Keystone as he was struggling with this, kind of being inundated with it. And just the severity of the organized crime aspect of it too. I don't want that to be understated. That is a very serious part and a very large part of how this is working across this country. And to the extent that we can make ourselves not a pit stop here, a safe zone, I think we should be very aggressive in any kinds of things we can do, whether it be, from law enforcement perspective, more of a holistic approach from law enforcement, from whatever we need to do from a regulatory standpoint. This is just a start, but I think we should do whatever government can do to help. So, thank you.
Other questions? Comments? Well, I just have one quick question. Is there a significance to the name Marissa's house?
Yeah, you can Google my story, but I had an encounter in 2015 at Sturgis with a young girl who was missing and was on a missing list, and we were doing outreaches in Sturgis, South Dakota. I don't do those anymore, by the way, but I had a brief encounter, about 10 minutes, with a young girl who seemed very vulnerable. And in that conversation and through a series of events, I realized that she was a potential trafficking victim and that she had been missing for a series of years, found again, and went missing again. And in that time, I was taught that trafficking victims typically, once they come out, are typically re-recruited if they don't get the services that they need, if they don't have the support because they're still vulnerable. This young girl was the reason why I started Call to Freedom, and I felt in order to honor her and her legacy, I'm not changing the name. So she will forever impact to be able to honor her in my encounter with her and honor her and her legacy. I want to be able to say that she impacted many lives in that 10-minute encounter that I had with her.
Well, thank you for your heartfelt answer. And I will say personally that I was unfamiliar with this until Counselor Jensen said, hey, we have to take a look at this. It's very important. And your presentation, I will say, as a father and a grandfather, scares the hell out of me. And I hope we can do everything we can do. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time and your support.
At this point, we come to the part of our meeting that's called public comment. So if you have anything to say about the subjects that were brought up today, please come forward. You'll have 5 minutes to address the council. Seeing none, do we need a roll call today? Then I'm going to adjourn this meeting.